Welcome viewers to Historical Journeys. In October 2019, a group led by Max and accompanied by Sack travels an undiscovered cave passageway in the 1986 discovered Let Your Gila Cave in the Carlsbad Caverns National Park of New Mexico. Many miles of the underground labyrinth have been surveyed by cavers since Letcher Gill's discovery. However, Sikon and his colleagues are surprised and delighted by what they now discover in this previously unseen section. They saw something otherworldly as the experts descended 700 feet into an unexplored cave. But before we get started, if you're enjoying this video, show us some love by subscribing. It's the best way to support us and never miss out. Let's get started. To investigate this strange part of talk, Gila Cave, the group had first to cross the melodiously named pool of fluid sky. Soon, we'll return to the findings of Wiztech and his team. In any case, first we should become familiar with somewhat more about both the Carlsbad Sinkholes Public Park overall and the Letcher Gila Cave specifically. The public park is set in the Cheyupian Desert in the southernmost piece of New Mexico. The 70-square-mile park contains in excess of 80 caverns, one of which is the Carlsbad Sinkhole itself. The dazzling land arrangements in the park's caves were framed nearly a long time back when dinosaurs actually mandered the earth. Back during that old period, the grounds around the recreation area were covered by a shallow ocean encompassed by a huge living reef that reached out for 100 miles. Outcrops of this substance, the Capitan Reef, are as yet noticeable today in the Guadalupe Mountains Public Park for certain segments transcending up to 1,000 feet. The Guadalupe Park lies not a long way from Carlsbad Caves in adjoining Texas. Over the long-haul land processes gouged out enormous underground caverns, and presently inside them sits to slack vermin, tapered rocks, and amazing developments of gypsum looking like monstrous crystal fixtures. Pictographs and cooking pits found close to the Carlsbad Cavern's mouth suggest that Native Americans like the Mescalero Apaches and Zuni Pueblo were familiar with the cave. Truth be told, nonetheless, it appears to be that this mindfulness was then lost until the late 19th 100 years, when white pioneers in the locale rediscovered Carlsbad. These pioneers to some degree investigated the Carlsbad sinkhole looking for bat excrement, which they utilized as manure. One daring newcomer, a cowboy named James Larkin White, claimed to have discovered Carlsbad in 1898 when he was just 17 years old. In any case, it is said that White discovered the cave one evening while tending to his herd of steers. As he looked up into the sky, he thought he saw smoke from what he thought was burning. White had actually seen bat clouds that were so numerous that they resembled smoke from a distance. Having found the Carlsbad Cave, White ventured to organize visits to the site. The gutsy travelers dropped just about 200 feet into the cavern on board exactly the same compartments that had been utilized to pull out the bat excrement. That photographic artist called Reeve Davis brought a portion of the Carlsbad Cave's most stunning chambers like the huge room and the beautiful rooms to a more extensive crowd, with pictures distributed in the New York Times in 1923. White served as a guide for the Holy Team, and Robert Holy of the U.S. government's General Land Office led the first scientific expedition inside the cave that same year. The Carlsbad Cave National Monument was also discovered in 1923, and 7 years later it became a national park. It is not surprising that this stunning natural feature was recognized in such a way that the Carlsbad Cavern spans 30 miles and has approximately 1/10 of its length open to visitors. The radiant chamber known as the Huge Room is around 2,000 feet in length and an abundance of 1,000 feet across in certain parts. The chamber's rooftop ascends to 250 feet over the cavern's floor. Other shocking elements in the large room incorporate a 60-foot stalagmite called the Goliath Vault and the Abyss, an empty that plunges 700 feet. From a specially constructed amphitheater at the cave's mouth, which opened in the 1960s, visitors can even watch this amazing evening flight. Other caves in the national park also have amazing natural formations. The cavern we were keen on, Lecher Gila, found in the north of the recreation area, likewise has its reasonable part of every rousing element. Before that, in 1914, a claim was made to excavate guano, a valuable byproduct of a large number of bats, from the cave. However, the mining appears to have stopped after only a year, and the cave was largely left alone at the time. What investigation there was of the Talk Gila uncovered just a 90-foot pit at the entry, which prompted a few caverns that lengthy a couple 100 feet before unexpectedly finishing off with heaps of rock. In the 1950s, some inquisitive cavers came across an odd phenomenon at Lecher Gila, which was much more exciting than first appearances suggested. They heard what they thought to be a roaring gust of wind as these cavers looked over Lecher Gila's boundaries. Regardless of the way that they could see no chance through the piles of rocks that covered the lower part of the entry pit, the pioneers arrived at an inevitable understanding: there should be a greater amount of the cavern disguised by rubble. The cave was left alone for another 3 decades after that revelation about Lecher Gila's properties. It was only after 1984 that a few pilgrims from Colorado applied to be permitted to manage the stones stacked up in Lecher Gila to see what they could find. Furthermore, the Public Park Administration gave the activity its favoring. Finally, a legitimate investigation of Talk Gila could start off. More than 150 miles of cave passages and chambers, the deepest of which descended 1,604 feet, would be discovered over time. However, the extent of Lecher Gila's underground chambers is not the only factor that contributes to its outstanding status. The Public Park Administration waxes melodious about the staggering regular marvels of Lecher Gila Cave 2. It could a phenomenal cluster of uncommon cavern includes, some of which had never been seen anyplace on the planet, included 20-foot gypsum ceiling fixtures, 20-inch gypsum, hairs and whiskers, 18-foot soft drink straws, hydromagnesite inflatables, cave pearls, underwater hillock-dites, rusticles, U-circles, and J-circles. The anonymous public parks essayist enthuses what's more in the tooth. In an episode of the BBC television documentary series Planet Earth about the world's caves, veteran host David Attenborough clearly was blown away by the site's wonders. What's more, he's a man who's seen firsthand the wonders of nature in each side of the world. Attenborough said the ceiling fixture assembly hall was a definitive revelation. Attenborough continued, "It's the most bizarre cave chamber in the world." At that point, the great man stopped talking as the camera lovingly traced the bizarre crystal formations that adorned this incredible let-you-go chamber. At that point, the great man stopped talking. When he got comfortable with himself once more, Attenborough commented on the unusual extremophiles microbes that tracked down their home on the walls of the cavern. To be sure, that is the other extraordinary component of Lecher Gila Cave. Its extraordinary scientific properties fascinate and astonish speleologists like Isaac. We'll get to WIS-X 2019 project and his notable tracks down in a moment, but it's worth taking the quick break to learn about another pioneer who came to give you Gila before him. In 2002, for the well-known PBS science show Nova, columnist Michael Taylor led a group through the sections. Taylor showed the difficulties of cavern investigation with striking subtlety. We lay 1,200 feet basically under the desert, down endless rope pitches and miles of anguishing segment from the single admittance to permit your Gila to clasp he created on the PBS site. The cave's consistent sogginess, which had kept us waiting for a seriously significant time frame as we made our irksome way down by depleted away warmth. We resembled the day of exertion, our funk blending in with Leck's outstanding soil and metal fragrance. Taylor also showed how the topography of Lecher Gila proved a recently questioned theory about the development of caves. One more hypothesis proposed areas of strength for that responses between old groundwater and hydrogen sulfide ascending from a profound underground source might have prompted the development of limestone caves. The underground evidence gathered in the electric Gila cave demonstrated that the hypothesis that water arose from below and sparked the reactions that led to the formation of the caves was correct. It's time we got back to WIS-ACC and his October 2019 endeavor, which he depicted in the January 2020 arrival of NSS. The WISX team included Andy Armstrong, Hazel Barton, James Hunter, Beth Courtwright, and Sean Thomas. The Cavern Assets Office at Carlsbad Sinkholes Public Park expected the scientists to finish an exhaustive arrangement preceding their campaign. The Sinkhole Resources Office allowed them to do this, gave that none of the investigators came into skin contact with the water. The group was presently in new areas subsequent to crossing the 5-foot profound, 50-foot region of water. Despite the fact that the lake was first discovered in 1993, no one was allowed to cross it until the experts entered a 350-foot wide, exceptionally improved section on the far side of the water. The researchers created extremely detailed guides of the inside caverns using state-of-the-art circle Morse technology beyond the lake and conventional note-taking and outline. According to Rodney Hall Rocks, Carlsbad Caverns National Park's Chief of Natural and Cultural Resources, this pool had never seen light before that day and had been isolated for hundreds of thousands of years. In point of fact, the pool's crystal clear water and white frosted rock were the result of a light trick. It likewise contained extra of the interesting berry gems that WISTech is so amped up for expounding on Facebook. Prior to gathering their Act, it was brought up that a newfound pool in Lechergila Cave is similarly immaculate as it gets, and the group could be extremely content with their work. It was originally rain that ran through the limestone to get there. They had reviewed 4,000 feet of already obscure sections in 8 days, bringing the all-out number of investigated burrows in Lechergila to north of 150 miles. Thanks for watching. If you don't want to miss out on any of our upcoming videos, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. It's the best way to stay in the loop.